Hello, welcome to installment 3 of this leadership lesson mini series. This one is about contrarianism. For a quick review, last time we talked about patriotism and nationalism, and then we used the United States of America to talk about these topics because we are a very patriotic people, and rightfully so. But then we also looked at the fact at some statistics, and then we saw that the USA was deficient in some areas, or we saw some slippage in the future. And we learned that patriotism is the avoidance, really, of complexity and the avoidance of monoculturalism. Because if you're a true patriot, then you're going to want the best for your country, right? And you're going to be willing to accept valuable ideas regardless of where they come from. Okay. And then we had a call back to extremism, and we basically compared patriotism to informed extremism because you're aware of the facts, you're aware of the statistics, and therefore you can avoid the complacency. And then we talked about how nationalism is akin to uninformed extremism because you're just making a rash claim without any evidence. Okay, contrarianism. Let's take a closer look at that. So, the definition of this term is the tendency to take a different or opposing position to what most people think or do. Now, I'm going to go on a bit of a side tangent here, but I'm going to connect it back to contrarianism. So, a few people have asked me why I'm doing these sorts of lessons. And that's a fair question because, admittedly, I am. This is a on the more advanced side of the topics that I could choose from. So I just want to make my intentions crystal clear. Yes, there's a good chance that a few of you are going to go into the military, but some of you may not. And even those of you who do, there's a good chance that you're not going to be in the military for your entire adult lives. Some of you may go into aerospace, some of you may go into emergency services, but the primary goal, our primary objective, is to develop the next generation of great American leaders. That's what we're trying to do, right? And in order to be a great leader, you need to be able to take complex ideas, sometimes controversial ideas, and break them down and communicate them effectively. To communicate things effectively, you need to have a good vocabulary, which is why I introduced terms like contrarianism. Okay? But to prove to the doubters that you are indeed ready for this level, I want you to not already know the terms that I'm introducing. That's not how you prove that you're ready. You prove that you're ready by being willing to ask questions, by staying curious. Now, I'm not going to be one of those people who says that there's no such thing as a stupid question. But if you are genuinely confused or curious, or you think that your question could benefit the group, ask the question. Okay. Now, a few moments ago, I mentioned the importance of having a good vocabulary, but it is imperative that the objective in variegating our respective lexica is to more effectively promulgate ideas of value, via pedagogy or otherwise, in lieu of becoming a verbose sesquipedalian pseudo-intellectual for the sake of vying for an air of perspicacity. Okay, so I didn't really understand anything that I just said. But when I teach this in class, I usually see a lot of furrowed eyebrows and a lot of head nodding, right? But the only reason I barely understood what I was saying was because I wrote it. But if someone said that to me, I would have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm doubting that everyone in the room also understood what I was saying to them. Um, so let's just I want to break down what this is actually saying. So it is important that our goal in what is that, diversifying our vocabularies is to more effectively communicate valuable ideas through formal education or otherwise, instead of becoming overly wordy and using a bunch of just obscure terminology for the sake of sounding smart. Okay, and obviously I was contradicting myself because I didn't understand what I was saying, so I was not effectively communicating valuable ideas. Instead, I was just trying to sound smart by using a bunch of fancy terminology. Okay, but a lot of people were nodding their heads. They were just going along with it. Okay, they were. I was trying my best to portray confidence in what I was saying, and because of that, I tricked some people into following me. Okay, and I gave an example right there of false intellectualism, and a lot of people fall for this, especially with the internet personalities, where you see a bunch of people who claim that they're independent thinkers, and then you see other people who want to be independent thinkers, who are aspiring to be that, and they see this person who is claiming to be that, and they follow them without thinking. Okay, um, and this is where I want to introduce this quote from one of my favorite authors, Christopher Hitchens. The essence of the independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but in how it thinks. If you are just following the dogma of one particular person who claims to be an intellectual and an independent thinker, you are not an independent thinker. Okay? Okay? The independent mind lies not in what it thinks or who it thinks alike with. Okay? It lies in how it thinks. You need to be able to make your own opinions based on your and on the facts that you gather, and then create your own opinions. Okay. Now, I talked about controversial topics, and here we go. Political correctness. Obviously, we live in a society right now that's very polarized, and we tend to get angry with each other pretty quickly. So the what we're seeing right now in culture a lot is there are two sects, right? And one sect, admittedly, you could say that they do tend to get offended a bit too easily. Not everyone, but some people, yeah, they are kind of sensitive, overly so at times. And then there's another sect of people on the internet that seem like they've made it their life mission to make these sensitive people as angry as possible, and they seem to think that they are fulfilling the duties of the contrarian. But that's not what the whole point of it is. It's not my facts don't care about your feelings, because a lot of times those facts aren't even facts. But that's not the point of contrarianism. It's not to hurt people. It's not to suppress your empathy. Okay, and here is another quote from Christopher Hitchens. The noble title of dissident must be earned rather than claimed. It connotes sacrifice and risk rather than mere disagreement. Don't just disagree for the sake of making people angry. That's not what the whole point of contrarianism and dissident is meaning. Okay? Okay, so contrarianism is a very delicate thing, and when you're carrying it, you have to balance on this very thin beam of critical thought. Okay? Because if you fall off that beam, on one side, you get conspiracy theory, and you start saying, "Oh, they never landed on the moon, and the Earth is flat." Okay, you're not thinking critically anymore. You're just disagreeing with the popular opinion just because it's the popular opinion. Then on the other side, you fall into the side of just making people angry, and that's what your objective is now. And it's not to actually positively influence anyone with your contrarianism; is to just make people angry, like we mentioned on the last slide. And then like, here's another example. In your high school or college history class, there's almost always going to be this one kid who thinks that they're so smart, and then you in your history class, and then you get to the World War II unit, and they're going to raise their hand, and they're going to be like, "Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Teacher, Hitler, hear me out. Hitler wasn't that bad." And they're gonna find some ridiculous evidence, like he invented the microphone or something, or he invented the highway. Neither of those are true, but that he is also going to be thinking, "Oh, I'm the contrarian here. I'm the intellectual." No, you're not. You're just lost complete sight of what the whole point of contrarianism is. Okay, a lot of times the widely accepted notion is correct. But I'm not. What the whole point of contrarianism is to not just accept that and take it for granted. You need to be able to understand why that notion is correct. So here's the nature, the cycle of contrarianism. So you start off with skepticism. That's very important. Be a skeptic. Okay, don't look at the world through rose-colored glasses, because that's how you get tricked. Okay, then once you find a situation to be skeptical about, then you take the perspectives of all the sides. Okay, and then with all those perspectives, you do research. And then, if there is something to disagree about, if you, based on your research, and you've checked all the facts, and you're seeing something's not adding up here, then you dissent. And then hopefully that dissent leads to progress in the correct direction. And then when the next situation comes, you can be a skeptic about it again. Again, this will not always be necessary. A lot of times, the popular opinion is the correct one. The earth is spherical, okay? Uh, so a lot of times that won't be necessary, but be willing to go, the willingness to go there is what's important. Okay, so on a micro scale, what is the point of being a contrarian? Well, is to avoid this, prioritizing harmony over critical thought. I'm going to introduce a few psychological terms here. This is a groupthink, a psychological phenomenon that occurs when a group of people prioritize harmony or conformity over critical thinking, resulting in irrational or dysfunctional decisions. Okay, to avoid this, a lot of times people will, groups will appoint a devil's advocate. This is a person who expresses a contentious opinion in order to provoke debate or test the strength of opposing arguments. So now, in order, so the devil's advocate is appointed to avoid groupthink, which is basically, which can be summarized with this right here. Okay, but what is the end? What happens if we get rid of that and we just keep going down the road of groupthink? Well, then you end up with group polarization, where you end up agreeing with each other and you just keep prioritizing harmony. Your goal is over there, but you keep going this way because everyone thinks that they're agreeing with each other about the wrong things, and they end up all the way over here. But now they're super confident about their wrong opinion. And that's why contrarianism is important, to make sure that we are avoiding groupthink and group polarization. Okay, so that's the micro scale. Let's think about the macro scale. Why do any of these things that we've mentioned so far in the leadership lessons? Why be informed? Why be an informed extremist, patriotic, contrarian? Well, the end goal of all of this is to end up in a more prosperous future. And this quote pretty much sums that up with from Tim Minchin. If the intention is to progress forward into a future of more empathy and understanding, it cannot be that the primary mechanism by which we are going to make that progress is the suppression of empathy and understanding for anyone who doesn't align with our beliefs. It cannot be that unmitigated expression of furious outrage will somehow alchemize into a future of peace and love. The Sure, I'm going to go back here. Be informed, be an extremist, be a patriotic contrarian. But if you are these things and then you just throw away the whole concept of empathy, well, then you're not going to accomplish anything. Let's just, okay, I'm going to bring back my so-so analogy about trails and cliffs. Okay, this time there are no wolves, um, and there are two leaders this time. So you're one leader, your friend is the other leader, and then you're taking a group of people down a trail, and then you come to a fork road. Okay, fork in the road. Uh, you know that on the left side, you looked at the map. On the left, if you keep going left, you're going to fall off the cliff. If you go on the right, you're going to safely return home. But your partner and all the people who are following you seem to think that going left is the correct option. You're informed. You are trying to make the decision of going right. You are disagreeing with the popular opinion. So uh, we can check this off. We can check this off. You can check this off. And you care about the people that you're leading. So we can check this off. Okay. So you're all of these things. But if we just tell them, hey, you are incredibly unintelligent for thinking that, and you just insult these people, they're not going to listen to you. Okay. Uh, if the whole point of this is building up to actually presenting your argument to go into a more prosperous future. Okay. And in order to do that, you're going to have some empathy, and you're going to have to appeal to their own egos, because people are egotistical. That's part of human nature. And if you insult them, they're not going to listen. Okay. Be empathetic, be kind, and be all of these things as well. And then we can actually go into a future of more prosperity. Okay, that is it for installment 3. I will see you next time.